All right, welcome back. In case you're just joining us, it's still the Money Show. It's the Monday edition, and it, of course, is coming to you live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Joining me right now is Patrick Okigbo. He's the principal partner at Nestia. Welcome, Mr. Okigbo. Nice to see you. You know, it's been a while. You've been hibernating. What have you been up to?
Trying to keep busy and stay out of trouble.
Oh, stay out of trouble. I think that's actually a very wise one. You know, because you can easily get into trouble these days. We're looking at the NNPC forensic audit as it concerns the $20 billion unremitted funds. You know, the president did order that the report should be released, the PwC report, and a lot of people did say at that time, oh, a little too late. Why is the president doing all of that now? But the thing is that the report is in public domain now, and some of us, of course, have access to that report. We've read, you've read it. I've also read it because we discussed over the report. But let me start by asking you what a forensic audit is. Yeah, or is it a dumb question?
No, I don't think it is.
It is, isn't it?
Because when you say forensic audit, most people think that PwC is going to go in there and uncover, upturn every stone and look in every drawer and try to figure out where the skeletons are or where the bodies are buried. A forensic audit versus a normal audit lies in that confluence between accounting and investigation. Yeah, so it goes a bit further than a normal accounting audit, but you still rely on the information you're given, and you then take an investigative view on that information. So, for instance, if you read the PwC report, they did not get any information from MPDC, but they used information that was available to them to investigate and make certain assumptions. And so that's the difference between a normal accounting audit and a forensic audit. However, when Nigerians hear forensic audit, they thought that NNPC is going to come out with, that PwC is going to come out with, you know, all the skeletons, and we haven't seen all the skeletons yet.
For the past 16 years, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Because I've heard a lot of people say that NNPC should be probed, you know, for many years, you know, especially of the PDP administration, that NNPC should be probed for that. But I still want to stick with this forensic audit, and I went researching. Forensic audit, of course, is the application of accounting methods to the tracking and collection of forensic evidence, usually for investigation and prosecution of criminal acts. You're laughing. Perhaps you know where I'm going to. Of criminal acts such as embezzlement or fraud. It's also called forensic accounting.
Correct.
So the PwC forensic audit on NNPC, should it just be, they've written the report, we should leave it there? Should people be prosecuted, or should people answer questions?
No, I think it's long overdue. We've had various audits happen in, you know, with NNPC, and then nothing happens. And it's almost like we're signaling to NNPC that, you know, every 4 years we come, we look within your world, but we go away and we do nothing about it. You know, but I think where we are today is Nigerians have voted in a new government that came in on the wings of change and has said that one of its focal points will be fighting corruption. So the forensic audit is a good place to start. It's a good place to say, listen, you know, what has happened in NNPC? How do we begin to fix it? Who are the culpable characters? Bring them to book, and at least signal to Nigerians that, you know, it's no longer going to be business as usual. But I think it also goes a little beyond that, because the rot we see in NNPC, some of it is sanctioned by law, some of it is legal, sanctioned by law. Then the other is just the anyhowness of Nigeria, where you believe that you can do whatever and get away with it. So Nigerians will be looking to the incoming administration to signal that we've come to the end of the road, that if you do indeed misstep, that there'll be something to pay.
What actually do you make of the total report after reading it? What were the thoughts crawling around your mind? Because there were a lot of mind-blowing things in that report. However skeletal it was, and however the little information that PwC had to work with, because PwC consistently was saying it in that report that, oh guys, you know, like for MPDC, we couldn't get anything there, documents. We are doing this based on what we were given. Even as at the time they were still doing the audit, some documents were still coming to them.
Earlier this year.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, when you shake everything together and boil it down, you can get buried in the numbers, or you can try to look at it from a 10,000 feet view, and what you'd see is immense corruption sanctioned again by law. Yeah, and also just the recklessness of the institution called NNPC. But again, over the years, there have been ideas and thoughts on how to solve this, but there hasn't been the political will, to drive it through. So if you boil the report down, what you see is claims for subsidy payment, and anyone who has paid a little bit of attention knows that that is the biggest corruption in Nigeria today. For instance, they claim that they make kerosene subsidy payments.
Payments, yes.
I don't know anyone in Nigeria, any part of Nigeria, who's bought kerosene at 50 naira. So that's a massive $3-point-something billion that has been shared by the political elite. Yeah. Then you talk about fuel subsidy, petrol subsidy, PMS. NNPC claims that we use about 59 million liters of PMS every day. That's clearly not right. Yeah. Some estimates put it at about 30 million, 35 million. So that difference, who takes it? Now you look at, so many other, those are the kinds of issues that the report brings to light. And those are the kinds of issues that one is hoping that the incoming administration will focus on. The subsidies have to go. It's the biggest drain on our economy. In 2011, we spent almost 50% of the federal budget on subsidies. Kerosene subsidies, for instance, they bring in the kerosene, they don't even bring it to the shores of Nigeria. They transload offshore. Why do that? So these are the kinds of issues. And
kerosene subsidy ab initio shouldn't be there.
It shouldn't be there because Yaradua
stopped it. But the Minister of Petroleum and, of course, even the president in the media chat did not disallow DPK subsidy. Okay, so that's something that boggles the mind, right? So Yaradua looked at it, President Yaradua of blessed memory, looked at it and said, there's no subsidy here. Nigerians are not getting any subsidy, so cut it off. But someone failed to gazette it. So NNPC held on to the fact that it wasn't gazetted, and they kept making the subsidy payments. Now, the executive secretary of PPRA came out in 2010 and said, we're not making any subsidy payments. Yeah, but it continues to leave the coffers of government. Then in a chat, the President Jonathan says, there's subsidy payments. So we're a bit confused, but the fact remains that this is the bastion of the corruption, right? And this is what must go. The subsidy must go. Why do we keep subsidizing product? And if we keep subsidizing, we can't fix the refineries. If we don't fix the refineries, we stay hostage to these importers, these marketers, and that's why we see the fuel queues. And it's become unsustainable. There is absolutely no way we can continue to pay these subsidy monies, and the country would basically go bankrupt. In that report, the PwC did say that, talking about DPK kerosene, that the NNPC should explain selling DPK at 40 naira 90 kobo instead of 34 naira 51, of course, which is the selling at coastal waterways. Instead of selling at in-country depots, you're selling at coastal waterways. A lot of jargons.
Okay, so essentially, what it says is that NNPC should sell at 34 naira 51
kobo.
Yeah, but NNPC claims it doesn't land the kerosene on our shores, that the marketers prefer to take delivery offshore. Now, why would they prefer to take delivery offshore? And that adds another 7 or so naira on the 34 naira that are supposed to be paid. But you also know that kerosene sells for way more than that in our neighboring countries where it's not subsidized. So if you believe conspiracy theories, you might say that they just take the kerosene from offshore and it's easier for them to move it to neighboring countries and take the subsidy from Nigerian government and still sell it at the going rate in those neighboring countries. That's why we never find kerosene.
And it's not sold at 15 naira.
And it's sold on average, according to Sanusi Lamido Sanusi as central bank governor, between 190 and 250 naira across Nigeria. It's a sham. It's a massive scandal, and that is what the government should focus on. That is what it. I mean, we've been saying it as a firm since 2010 that this is the biggest source of corruption in Nigeria. It must go. The arguments are all in the favor of it because it's not even the poor masses are not getting the subsidy, even if the subsidy did exist.
Now, let me take you through this way, which is, when they talk about NNPC, perhaps the staff or the management of NNPC or the Petroleum Ministry may think that Nigerians are witch hunting them. Or for those of us that are in the media, we started again and we are witch hunting them. Is it about witch hunting now or about a lot of things happening? Take, for example, even in Brazil, Petrobras is being currently investigated. I think, was it the chief executive officer had to go? The president of Brazil now, the woman, is also being linked to the corruption at Petrobras. So what is this about these state oil companies? What is it with them? And for NNPC as a body, is it about witch hunting?
I don't think so.
Because I'm thinking if they are watching right now, and of course I know they'll be watching in their offices, they'll be like, Nancy and her people have started again. But it's about analyzing what we have seen. Should it be business as usual?
Okay, so we think about it this way. At oil at $115
yes.
average, NNPC was spending about 45% to 50% on themselves. Yeah? Oil today is about $65, $63. If they continue spending the way they're spending, nothing will come to the Federation account. So what we have is one institution that's feeding at the trough where 170 million Nigerians should be feeding. A few individuals. NNPC, their salaries are unreal, their gratuities and benefits are unreal, but they claim that it's by law, because if you look at the NNPC Act of 1977, it says there in clear black and white,
yes.
Deduct all your expenses before you turn the money over to government. So it's there's some document that's flying around social media, and some guy wrote a pretty good analogy of it. He says it compares it to the yam and the goat. So you give the goat the yam and you say, okay, eat as much as you want and then give us the balance. And that's exactly what's happened. And they are protected by law. And it doesn't matter, most people would say, catch the minister, Dezani, crucify her. It's not, I don't think it's about her. I think it's really about the system.
So should NNPC be blamed for all this? Because ab initio, they've been empowered to do what they, just like the analogy, the goat and the yam.
Okay, so in the PIB...
Should NNPC be blamed?
We should blame the political leadership of Nigeria. Because the PIB states clearly that this problem is there, and you must solve the problem by, first of all, commercializing NNPC, privatize it. And set up other institutions. NNPC cannot be the regulator and an operator at the same time.
Yes.
The PIB is clear on it. Why haven't we been able to pass the PIB? Why? So these are for me, these are the issues that the PwC report has brought to light, right? And giving us an opportunity to resolve. Yeah? So, we can either focus on blaming individuals, or we can focus on solving the system and process challenges, that exist.
Okay, I think at this point, let's quickly take a break. So perhaps you can take a cup of water because it's a lot ahead. And we'll be right back. But just before the break, you can send your comments. You can tweet me at Nancy Ilo and tell us what you think about our topic today. In case you want to ask Mr. Okigbo any question, he's here, at least for the next few minutes, and we're looking at the NNPC forensic audit. Do stay, we'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Frank, and this is our Kemu story.
We sold all of our old baby stuff on the internet with Kemu.com.
It took just 5 minutes to get started, and it's free for customers like me.
Buyers come from all around the neighborhood.
We got rid of everything, and with the profits, I can get all the new stuff.
Already ahead of you. I've just been shopping.
Start your business today. It's that easy. Kemu.com.
All right, welcome back. Patrick Okigbo, the principal partner at Nestia, is still with me, and we're looking at the NNPC forensic audit, of course, as regards the PwC report on the unremitted. Some people say missing. However you want to put it, there was an allegation by the former central bank governor that $20 billion was missing. That was the last one, because it started from 49.8 to, however, even if it is $1, it was all remitted according to the former central bank governor. Now, let's take a look at the strategic partnerships, isn't it?
Correct. So, I mean, just to point out that the PwC report, after looking at everything, says that what's unremitted is about $1.48 billion. Yeah? But again, let's not focus on the number. Let's focus on the fact that it's even unremitted. The process that made it possible for someone not to remit the 1-point-something billion is what we should interrogate and make sure that we solve. But on the strategic partnerships, what happened was Shell sold some of its assets to Nigeria, managed by NNPC and MPDC, and they turned around and said, "Okay, MPDC, we don't have the money to fund, so let's sell these or get some other companies to fund it." And they got Seven Energy and Atlantic paid about have a contract of about $7 billion, to fund these assets. Now, there's been a lot of discussion in the press that why would MPDC pay Seven Energy and Atlantic about 10%, for financing these, that MPDC could have done it on their own. My view on it is yes, if you have people who are commercially minded in MPDC, they could have done it. But we can't crucify the companies who brought that idea and did it and brought funding, to NNPC. However, we should focus on commercializing NNPC so that these kinds of situations do not arise. Yeah. Now we have the issues of the swaps and give NNPC the crude, and they can't pay for it. They pay with it's all a mess. It's a mess because we haven't done what we need to do. We haven't fixed the refineries. Either sell them or mothball them and just build new ones. But if you look at how much we keep spending on the subsidies, we could have built enough refineries to refine the products in Nigeria. But we haven't done it because the political elites, those with access, keep feeding at the trough. And that is what Nigerians are hoping, that the incoming administration can solve for us.
Now, the question at which I'll go back, should NNPC be blamed? Should any minister of petroleum be blamed? Because it's all about the political class.
Okay.
The NNPC was empowered by law to do whatever thing it's doing right now. Make the money, deduct whatever you want to deduct for your operation. So I can, if an organization is making 100 and I'm empowered by the law, I can as well deduct anything at will and give the remaining, even if it's 10 naira, to the central coffers. So that also brings me to the question of the issue of equity crude and domestic crude.
Okay, so let's answer the first question: should the ministers and so on, be blamed? I think the incoming administration should run its anti-corruption program the way it's conceived it. But I'd caution that we spend a lot of time on process and systems, because that's where the problem is. Because beyond that, it will seem like a witch hunt, if you know what I mean. Because how far back do you go? Nigerians are suffering. Nigerians are thirsting for some blood to see these people suffer a little bit of what we are suffering. The risk is because of the current actors. It might focus on Desani, President Jonathan, because they are there today. But we know
about the past administrations.
That there were past administrations.
Olusegun Obasanjo was at the time the Minister of Petroleum.
Yeah. Now you can go back to the Okigbo report, which was also around oil, 12.6 billion under President Ibrahim Babangida. So how far back do you go? Which is almost the same problem that Nuhu Ribadu ran into as EFCC chairman. Did a good job, but because the criteria for prosecution wasn't clear, it seemed as if it was a witch hunt. So for me, let's get some people who are culpable, who've done wrong to pay, but let's focus more on the processes and the systems to ensure that these things never happen again. Look at the PIB. Why haven't we passed it? If the PIB was passed, some of these issues wouldn't exist, because NNPC, for instance, would have been commercialized. Yeah, its dual role of operator and regulator would have been dealt with. Today, Nigeria does not have enough proven reserves because the oil companies are not investing in exploration because the fiscal provisions in the PIB are not clear yet. So those are the kinds of issues I think the incoming administration should spend a bit of time on. Get PIB passed as soon as possible, resolve this whole subsidy scam, remove it completely. We're also in luck today because oil prices are low. So if you took out the subsidies completely, Nigerians won't really feel the hike in price.
It puts us in a very dicey position.
Okay.
When oil was selling for $115 US, NNPC was still deducting about 46% of that to fund itself. Now that oil today's price is $67 US. If it deducts again, that leaves us.
We're done. So no money will come to FAC.
46% of $67 is
essentially no money will come to FAC. And we affect but today we need all the money we can get. We need all the money to invest in infrastructure, to invest in building out the transmission. The last time I was here, we were talking about power. Transmission network in Nigeria will probably take about $10 billion over the next 10 years if you look at the 30-year infrastructure master plan. That was done. Where's that money going to come from? We need to build out roads, railways, waterways to get into the hinterlands and bring out all this food that the agricultural revolution is supposed to produce. Yeah. So where would the money come from? If we keep essentially dashing people money, because that's what it is. People who have access to the table sit around and cut up, the money as they want it and call it kerosene subsidy, where nothing like that exists.
Now, okay, you've mentioned that the subsidy needs to be taken away. With Labour kicking against it now, how should it be handled? Because this is really staring us in the face. We know the the Honorable Lawan episode. Was it 3 years ago or 2 years ago? About 3 years ago. A lot of briefcase, what should I call them? They're not investors. Briefcase marketers just come, take money and go. Now it's really there that Nigerians, we need to take out the subsidy. Despite President Jonathan trying to do it in 2012, there were rallies up and down, riots, and was it riots or protest? But now it seems that almost every analyst like you that I've spoken to, take off the subsidy, How should the government, the incoming government, manage that? Labour on one side is saying no. Labour insisted that 18,000 minimum wage should be increased to about more than that. And I'm saying, I don't even envy this incoming government at all.
By the way, it's, and I'll probably get crucified for what I'm about to say, but it's us bowing to the minimum wage that Labour demanded that led to the ballooning of the recurrent expenditure in Nigeria, where today we spend about 76% of our federal budget just paying salaries and all whatnot, right? Someone needs to sit down and explain to the incoming government the arithmetic of fuel subsidy and the arithmetic of continuing to pay these monies. It's almost like coming in on the one hand and going out on the other. So technically, the incoming administration needs to understand it. Now, the incoming administration must understand that we voted them in to run this government. We did not vote Labour in. So they must deal with Labour. How do you deal with Labour? You bring them to understand the way you've understood. That unless we do things differently, all of us will die.
But there's also a school of thought, which I think Labour may also too, that a Nigerian worker is entitled to a good living, is entitled to beautiful salary at the end of the month, considering the fact that Nigeria is an oil-producing nation. If you take a look at our GDP per capita, we should do better than we're doing right now. If the leakages, Labour may say, we are not the problem. There are a lot of leakages, and this politician, you're telling us to take 18,000 naira home when a politician, an honorable member, a senator is taking home millions of naira.
I agree. We've also advocated for the incoming administration to show, first of all, that it has cut its own fat before it expects anyone else to cut their fat. Yeah? So the presidency will cut its fat, go into the villa, and indicate to Nigerians that you understand what we are feeling. Now, the legislators On our website, we have a document we put out there, managing the size of the National Assembly. We've also said it should be a part-time legislature. Cut down their salaries by more than 80%. If you cannot live on 20% of what you're getting now and be a legislator, then you're in the wrong place, because the legislature shouldn't be a place where you feed fat. It's a place where you do national service. Yeah? When you do all of these, Nigerians will see that you've done your part. And when you call Nigerians to work with you to deliver that solution, they will work with you. Labour understands that there's lots of leakages, and that's why Labour is pushing back. But when the government cuts its fat, Labour will cut fat.
Perhaps it should start with the incoming president, cut his salaries and all that. The number of aides you're having, how much has been spent in Aso Rock for feeding all those things should be cut down.
But I mean, something gives me hope. There was a picture again going around on social media that showed him having breakfast with the incoming vice president with a sachet of Milo, and 20 naira, 30 naira Milo. That shows me that this is not a frivolous person, and that if he brings some of his personal character, to government, Nigerians are just waiting for leadership, right? I believe that. I believe that Nigerians are waiting for someone to point in a direction and show commitment in that direction. And if we see that through the personal character, the personal characteristics of the president, everyone around him should, toe that line. And if they don't, he shouldn't, be shy at all in taking them out of his administration.
Let me take you back to the issue of domestic crude and equity crude. I did not forget that. Okay. You didn't answer that question. The domestic crude is the one that is being refined here, which
Correct.
is the 445,000 barrels per day.
Correct.
The equity crude is the one is spotted. I hope our viewers understand all this terminology. Now, in the PwC report, what did you make out of that?
Okay, so we're supposed to have a refining capacity of about 445,000 barrels per day, but it's operating at about 26%. And because we can't meet the refining capacity, NNPC now has to import on its own, import fuel. Yeah, and because NNPC does not have money, NNPC has to pay with crude. And PwC pointed out that that's a very murky transaction. First of all, sometimes how do you fix prices? How do you fix quantities and all of that? So it's all a mess, like all the messy situations that they highlighted. We can go into the nitty-gritty, picking out holes and showing numbers.
The issue of pipeline vandalism that was also mentioned.
That was about $1 billion was spent on that, and some good analogy. NNPC, there was a report in 2010 that said, you needed to use technology, to monitor the pipeline. And immediately NNPC jumped, because that's a procurement thing, jumped and bought the technology. But the technology is not being used. So you spend a lot of money in trying to track pipeline vandalization, but then the money you spend in fixing the pipeline, doubles. So you can pick each and every one of them, and the story is the same. For me, the solution is go in there, shake things up.
By doing a system overhaul?
Complete system overhaul.
But you need the assistance of the National Assembly to get it done. Because what kind of overhaul will you do if the law still empowers NNPC to do that?
The law has to change. And I don't think that any self-respecting Nigerian in the National Assembly would go against any effort to restructure NNPC. If they do, then the incoming administration should appeal to Nigerians and show Nigerians the numbers and let Nigerians give them the support they need to force the hand of the National Assembly to do what the National Assembly needs to do. This is not going to be in my view, this administration is not going to be a tea party, using the words of our great
Americans.
Minister. It's not going to be a tea party. They need to shake things up. It needs to be a bit of an activist government. You need to rely on the people, keep going back to the people to explain to the people what you're trying to do, and the groundswell of support you get from the people will help you negotiate with Labour, will help you force the hand of National Assembly to do what they need to do. The overwhelming support that the incoming president got was all built on the hope that he's coming in to shake things up. And there is no place to start. The first place to start is NNPC.
So is it right for him to have said that he will probe the activities of the NNPC.
If he doesn't probe it, then we'll probably vote him out midway. He has to. He has to probe NNPC.
That brings me to the question of APC right now saying that we are not magicians, we are not miracle workers. Abinisho, you were voted in on the premise of a lot of promises which you told Nigerians. So coming back now to say, oh, guys, it's not just as you say, as you look at it, it's the, what did they say? The more you look, the less you see.
Yeah.
We agree that sometimes outside, is easy to criticize and say a lot of things. That when you enter, you get a better view. But isn't also fraud for APC?
Strong word.
To say,
I wouldn't use
or
the word.
Tricky.
I wouldn't use that either. I would say they were on the outside. Opposition party for the last 16 years. Looking from the outside, things are not as clear as they are when you get in. When you get in, you now, recalibrate the promises. But go back to Nigerians and say, the reality is this, we have recalibrated, and this is what we can do.
Or remodify, because the president-elect said that we may need to modify, because the APC manifesto is not the Quran or the Bible, so we may need to remodify.
Of course they have to, of course. And by the time they get in and see the resources that are there, because right now they don't even know how much they'll be working with. They now have to re-strategize, figure out where more resources will come from, and recalibrate the promises. I think if Nigerians see the integrity and the genuineness in their attempt to fix Nigeria, Nigerians will give support. But if it's another bait and switch, like politicians are known to do, then I think we'll also see a backlash.
Let's talk about MPDC,
okay.
The subsidiary. I haven't forgotten that. The subsidy is a subsidiary of NNPC, fully owned.
Yes.
The PwC said they were also constrained in getting some data.
Yes, and they didn't get any data from MPDC, but they used some publicly available information. They traced monies around, and they came up that MPDC needs to remit about 5.1 billion. The key issues they raised there was the swaps, not the swaps, the strategic partnerships, that I talked about earlier, where MPDC got in Seven Energy and Atlantic, to help finance 5 of the wells or the oil fields. A few analysts have pushed against that structure and said that one of the companies was registered just a day before the transaction was done. I don't think those are strong issues to focus on. I think that the fact remains that MPDC and NNPC could not solve a problem. Some private sector people came together and helped them solve the problem. Now, if you believe conspiracy theory, you can say, well, the problem they solved was not such a difficult problem that MPDC could have done it.
Yeah.
And that maybe MPDC brought in their friends, to solve a problem they could have solved. Now, this is what the restructuring and rejigging and transformation of NNPC and its subsidiaries should ultimately help us achieve. If it's a private company, we won't have these kinds of issues.
The PwC said strongly, recommended that the NNPC model and
Not
operation, must be urgently reviewed
now.
And restructured.
Now.
It should be done now.
Now.
What are your parting words? The report is really very, though it's not as full because the PwC said it was constrained, but even the little that we saw,
Quite sobering.
Yes, was quite sobering and overwhelming. I think even up to 1 a.m. this morning, I was going through the report, in terms of like making a lot of notes and like, okay, where do we go from here?
I think what we need to do is the incoming administration, first of all, needs to focus on passing the PIB. The PIB addresses most of these issues. 2, the subsidy must go. The arithmetic does not work. Nigerians are being scammed out of a lot of money. Subsidy must go. 3, NNPC must be reformed. And it is not a job that the incoming administration will leave to EFCC or ICPC. No. This is going to be, in my view, the president's full-time job for a while, to get it fixed. And then once it's fixed, we can move forward.
Okay, Director, just please give me a few seconds, please. 20 seconds. Let's take messages from our viewers. Stanley Joma is saying, you refuse to refine crude oil locally, but scream subsidy. While John King is saying, perhaps Nigerians elected him on his promises that the president-elect. Now he's not a magician. Magic or no magic, he must deliver. Tommy is saying, the PIB bill is a major solution to petroleum industry problem. While Sugar Boy, okay, Fast Tracker on Twitter is saying, favorite. That is the show today is his favorite.
Oh, wow.
All right, that's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Okigbo. It's not the end of it anyway. We'll see how it pans out. Thank you very much. I've been speaking with Patrick Okigbo, who is the principal partner at Next Year, and we've been looking at the almighty NNPC forensic audit of the $20 billion unremitted funds. Thank you all for being a part of the show today. Please join us again tomorrow, same time on this station. I will be here with my crew, God willing, for the change you want to see. Be the best you can be also. God bless Nigeria. See you all tomorrow.